Okay, let's go over the answers to the practice quiz. The first question asks you, what is the vertex? And this is in vertex form. Our book calls it standard form, but most of the math community knows this version as vertex form. In vertex form, you get the vertex from these two numbers. And our vertex will be -5, 9. So the +5, you take the opposite of that to get the x value of the vertex. The y value is exactly as it is in that equation. Then part B, what direction? You want to look right in front of the parentheses. If it's positive, the graph opens up. That means it's a normal looking U-shaped parabola. If there's a negative in front, then the graph opens down and it's an upside down parabola. So since this is a positive number here, there's no negative, that's definitely a positive, our graph opens up. So you would click on this to select the vertex -5, 9, and you would click that button and select up. Question number 2 is the graphing question. We're going to start by finding the vertex and the y-intercept. And there are two little like drop-down menus underneath here, but just for space on this page, I took those out. So I will try to make it very clear, vertex and y-intercept. Okay, for your vertex, I want you to remember that your vertex is the opposite of b over 2a something. So you do opposite of b over 2a to figure out the x value of your vertex, and then you plug that in to find the y value of your vertex. So I am going to do, remember, this is your a, this is your b, and this is your c. So we're going to do the opposite of b over 2a. Do that right up here. That is -6 over 2 times 3. So we'd have -6 over 6, which is -1. So I know that my vertex starts with -1, and I got that from doing this work. So I'm going to just circle this and show that's how I got that number. To get the second part of the vertex, you need to plug that in. So 3 times -1 squared plus 6 times -1 plus 5. -1 squared is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. -6. So -3 plus 5 is 2. That gives us the y value of our vertex. So this work told us that second part of our vertex. The y-intercept is honestly the easiest part of this. You plug in 0. 0 squared is 0, 0 times 3 is 0, 6 times 0 is 0. You end up with just 5. Your y-intercept is the point 0, 5. So your vertex is -1, 2, and your y-intercept is 0, 5. Okay, I wanted to show you part B on the actual test. So we know that our vertex is -1, 2, and our y-intercept is 0, 5. So to graph the parabola, you have to click this little button that says click here, and that puts a parabola on the graph. You drag one of the points to your vertex, -1, 2. Your other point, you drag to the y-intercept, 0, 5. And make sure you look at that scale very carefully. They've only got a couple of numbers on there, and that little number is a 6, not a 5. So -1, 2, and 0, 5. And when you click that button to get that, it should be pretty obvious which one is the vertex and which one is the other point, but you might need to like drag the points around a little bit to figure it out. Okay, so I'll write that on there later. Question number 3, write an equation for the quadratic function with the given vertex passing through the given point, and this equation is given to you. So I like to use y because it's easier for me, but your first step is to put your vertex in. So step 1, put your vertex in. So y equals a times x minus a negative 2 squared minus 3. Minus a negative 2 means plus 2. Your second step is to put your point into that. So 1, 0 is the point, so you put 0 in place of y and 1 in place of x. Your third step is to solve for a, figure out what a is. So we have 0 equals a times 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 squared is 9. Add 3 to both sides. 1/3 is our a value. Your last step is to put that all back together, back into this, or well, actually, into here. Nope. Into here. We'll try that again. Into the one that has x and y. You want to replace that a with the a value you just found. So y equals 1/3 times x plus 2 squared minus 3. And you would find that option in this little drop-down menu. Okay, question number 4. Solve the inequality. You need to get 0 on one side first. So x squared plus x minus 20 is greater than 0. And then we need to factor to get our critical points. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us negative 20 and add up to 1. That would be 4 and 5. Have to be positive 5 to make this a positive 1 in the middle. So our critical points are at 4 and negative 5. You can also see that in the answer choices. Okay, let's test those critical points. Test around the critical points. So on the left side, I would test like negative 6. And you can test this back in the original. Negative 6 squared is 36 plus a negative 6. We want to know if that's bigger than 20. That would be 30. 30 is bigger than 20. So numbers smaller than negative 5 work. If we test 0, 0's in between. 0 squared is 0 plus 0 is 0. So you'd have 0 is greater than 20. Nope, that does not work. And then greater than 4, we could test 5. 5 squared is 25 plus 5. And yes, that is bigger than 20. So we want numbers that are smaller than negative 5 and larger than 4. So x is less than negative 5 or x is greater than 4. You want the kind of graph that would point in opposite directions. And we're not going to use A or B because those have the equal to lines and our original doesn't. So it's either C or D. It is going to be D. Well, your answers might be in a different order, but it's the one that's x is less than negative 5 or x is greater than 4. Question number 5, solve the inequality. Same thing. First, we have to get 0 on one side and then factor to find our critical points. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 40 and add up to negative 6. We've got, let's see, 1 times 40, 2 times 20, 4 times 4 and 10 I think would work. Have to be a negative 10 and a positive 4, which means our critical points are at negative 4 and at positive 10. And of course, I did that without even looking at the answer choices. If you look at the answer choices, you'd be like, oh, hey, it's negative 4 and 10. Maybe our critical points are negative 4 and 10. Because of this symbol, you can automatically say that those two answers are not correct. And remember, this is an answer elimination tool that will put X's through the ones that you know are not correct. So really, you need to test those critical points to see which of those two remaining answers is correct. So if you wanted to, you could just test 0 in between. 0 squared is 0, minus 6 times 0 is 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 40? Yes, it is. So we want these numbers in between -4 and 10. We want -4 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 10. So really on these problems, you can find the critical numbers just by looking at your answer choices and then test those critical numbers to figure out, is it going to be the or type where it's the two on the edges work, or is it going to be the and type where the numbers in the middle work? Number 6, this is another where you have to test critical points, but there's only one critical point. The critical value is where the bottom is going to equal 0. The bottom would equal 0 when x is 5. Okay, now again, looking at this symbol, you can automatically say that 2 of these answers are not correct. So we need to test a number bigger than 5 or smaller than 5 and see which one is going to work. I like to test 0, so I'm going to test the numbers smaller than 5 to see if those work. So 2 over 0 minus 5, that'd be 2 over -5, that would be negative, and negative is smaller than 0. So yes, we want the numbers smaller than 5, and that means that is our correct answer. Okay, number 7. Write this quadratic function in what we like to call vertex form, what the book calls standard form. That's why we didn't call it one thing or another. We just write it in this form. Okay, this involves completing the square. So you're going to have to remember how to complete the square. First of all, I'm going to write this as y equals -x squared plus 6x minus 8. Okay, I don't like that this is a negative in front, so I'm going to divide everything by -1. Basically, that just puts the negative on the other side. Then I am going to subtract 8 and leave a blank on the left side and a blank on the right side. So I'm just moving this 8 over to the other side out of my way. All right, I need to complete the square on the right side. So we need to think about what number times 2 gives us -6. That would be -3. That number squared goes in the blanks. So -3 squared is +9. We would add 9 to both sides. So remember, -3 times 2 is -6. -3 squared is +9. On the right side, on the left side, we have -y plus 1. Now we just have to rearrange it and get the y by itself. So -y equals x minus 3 squared minus 1. And we don't want -y, we want +y, so multiply everything, divide everything by -1. We would have y equals -x minus 3 squared plus 1. If you divide everything by -1, you would have +y, negative parentheses, and then a +1. So this would be your correct answer. You just have to change that y to f of x. So you're looking for -x minus 3 squared plus 1 right there.